G'day viewers, welcome to this week's PB's Retro Restorations. This week is my contribution to the Diecast International Builders Drag Cars build-off, and I'll be doing this 1962 Plymouth Savoy. So if you live on the south side of Brisbane, you've been trying to find these at the shops and can't, that's probably my fault because I've been stockpiling them to make super stock Plymouths out of them. Now Brian over at Diecast Outcast built one of these into an awesome super stocker. It had the right stance, the wheels on it looked terrific, and it reminded me that I had a box of these things, and if I was going to do a drag car it was always going to be a Mopar, and well, what better one to do than a super stock Savoy. So thanks for the inspiration, Brian, thanks for reminding me that I should do something with these, and as they say in the industry, let's get crack-a-lackin', race fans. I think they say that in the industry, don't they? I'm not sure what industry, but one of them. Now, before I destroy the post trying to get the car apart, I always try and remember to drill a pilot hole for the thread tap later on. Now, Ben and Mike, I am going to show that process. This is something I do long before I get to that stage. So sit tight, stay tuned. I have remembered to show the process this time, and you can actually see it in the camera frame, so everybody wins. Okay, so once I get it apart, there's not a lot of pieces, only the interior, glass, body, base, standard stuff really. Everybody's favourite part. That was the extended special treat for you. Now for the wheels on this project, I'm using this 64 Chevy Nova altered wheelbase gasser. The tyres and wheel package on this car are amazing. The rear wheels are like pie crust cheetah slicks. They're big and chunky, they're going to look awesome underneath the Savoy. Now when I was pulling it apart I thought, well I need an engine for the Savoy too, so I think I'm going to try and make that work as well. So I use my little plastic saw to cut the grill off the engine, and it looks like it's going to be a really good fit. I want to use the headers, but I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make them work. We'll see. So I've got some digital Vernier calipers. These are from Aldi. Yes, Aldi, the supermarket. They cost me like 15 bucks, and they're great. And I'm just going to measure up, see how big the hole needs to be. When I work it out, I just sketch it on there with a little, these are 0.2mm engineer's pens or something. I'm not an engineer, but they're nice and fine. I can draw on the metal with them. Now I finally invested in a jeweler's saw. I say invested, it was only 15 bucks, and the blades weren't terribly expensive for it either. Long-term viewer Jeff sent me a link to a video a while back now. It was of a Mercedes Hot Wheels, and the guy made the boot, the doors, the bonnet, everything open with the jeweler's saw. I thought, I've got to get one. I might have to give that a try one day. Not in this video, I'll just start with the basics. And just getting the blade fitted into it was a bit basic for me, but I got there in the end once I worked out which way I wanted the car around. Ugh. So after working in the city for 16 years, when I finally decided to look at getting a jeweller's saw, I found there's a jeweller's supply store just in the mall around the corner from my work. And to be continued, some of the fine metal files and things they keep, I'm definitely going to be going back there again. I'm not sure that the jeweller's saw is really used to its full advantage, just cutting a hole in the thing, but it helped me get it really square, and it cuts so fine, and I discovered there's so many options in blades for these things. I've got a long way to go to even come close to just the basics of these things, but it looks like it's going to be an awesome tool to add to the arsenal. Also use the old Dremel as well, just to clear it out a bit more, but the jeweler's saw is good for getting to those fine corners. Now I know the other obvious question everyone's going to ask is, well, where's the new special effects for this one? And I hadn't really thought about it, haven't come up with anything. It's hard to differentiate between the brass brush, the Dremel, and you know, the other things, they all start sounding the same. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm working on it, I promise. It's like all things, even though I'd measured it, the engine still wouldn't quite fit. So we just had to go a little bit bigger, but it's always better to have to go a bit bigger than try and go smaller, isn't it? Especially when we're talking about metal. I did end up making the decision to snap the headers off, and I actually cut off most of the block as well and sanded it down to fit. I figured you weren't going to see it, it'd be okay. Now I'm using my 2mm drill bit just to clear a round channel for the brass tubing for the front wheels. And I'm filing out the rear one, and it's probably not the best method because it's obviously not going to make it flat and even, as you'll see at the end. I should have put a brass tube in there too, but I was just being lazy, which is something I do. So using the 2mm brass rod and the 2mm drill bit makes for a snug fit, so I was just able to slide it in there, move it back and forth, get one wheel lined up, and then I'll mark the brass rod, cut it, finoodle it about a bit until they're square and straight, and we'll be all good. So I'm using some of the old Super Duper High Martin on the front brass axle just to hold into place, and then I'll put some of the magic baking soda on it that hardens up the glue for whatever reason, I don't know, but it does, and that's all we need to know, isn't it, race fans? Alright, Ben and Mike, you got your pen and paper ready? Okay, now here I am just rounding out the posts because, you know, we want them to slide into the base easily. Now you can still see where I drilled the pilot holes from the start of the video, so I've got something to go into, but you want them to sit flush or lower than the base so it pulls it tight and pulls it shut properly. Now I've got my 1.5mm drill bit here, and I've got a bit of tape around it. It's just Tamiya tape, and it's kind of on there in a way that I can slide it back and forth depending on the depth I want to go, because obviously you don't want to go so deep you come bang straight through out the other side. On this Plymouth Savoy, it's, you know, that's going to be pretty difficult because the posts are really long, but even then you still want to set yourself a limit, and if you know how long your cap screws are, then you don't want to have to drill any longer than is necessary. But I've drilled through bodies. I know just about everybody else on here that's used this method's probably done it too. You look at my Porsche build video I did for Andrew's thing, I went straight through and I just pretended it was a petrol cap. But anyway, onwards. Now, tap time. I use this Sutton Tools M2 by 0.4 tap. It's an Australian made one. When I was first giving this a go and trying it out, I just got like a $5 one off the internet from somewhere, and it was pretty good, but you can see what happens to $5 ones combined with inexperience. So I think it snapped off in the Ford Falcon hardtop I did, or the Plymouth Fury, I can't remember. Anyway, now they make proper fluid for this, but I just put a bit of WD-40 on it. There's probably people out there cringing when I say that, but you know, it just gives a little bit of, helps the cutting, makes it go a little bit smoother. So I've got it in my tap holder now, again, that I got for like $5 somewhere. And just go slow, you know, and don't try and go all the way down in the one go. You know, go in, then back it out, clear the swarth out of the channels on it, and then go back in again. And then, you know, if you feel it getting a bit tight, back it out again, but you'll generally get an idea of how deep it's going to go. And when you get right down to the end, it starts getting tight, don't keep twisting it. If you look close enough, even with this good tap I bought, you get to that point, you'll look at it, you'll see it starting to twist, and if it's starting to do that, you know that it's, you know, probably time to stop, or you're going to have all sorts of problems trying to get a busted tap out of a post. It may mean the end of your project. Now I'll put a link in the description to the eBay place that I get my cap screws from. Sometimes they can be hard to get and sometimes in varying lengths. So when I bought this lot, they're a little bit longer than I needed. It's not a problem with the Plymouth because the posts are so deep, but you know, shorter ones are better. But even when you drill these holes and after you've tapped them and you put your screw in there and it's a little bit too long, well, your only option is, and what I do is just Dremel the ends down a bit until it's flush and make it work. So there we go, 2 tapped posts with the cap screws in them, ready for paint. I always forget to do this before paint. It's always better when you do it before you paint it because then you won't damage your paint job, and then the cap screws get the same colour paint and it matches and everyone wins. And here I am putting the grey primer on. I put white enamel on this body, but I didn't feel myself doing the white enamel because I'm a bit dim-witted sometimes. But you'll see at the end I did paint it white, so you've got no choice but to believe me. Now ever since KC over at Metal Mania 3D told me about painting stone trays in his Holden video, I can't not do it now, so thanks KC. That's what I've done there. Just adds a bit more authenticity to it. So you can see here I sprayed the front rims with Molotow to make them chrome, and I sprayed the rear wheels red. They should be Steelies. Brian's at Diecast Outcast, he got Steelies on the front of his and they look sick. If I didn't have Steelies, I really wanted to use these tyres, so I just painted the mag wheels red, and you'll just have to forgive me, I'm afraid. And here's our wheels all glued in and baking sodaed. Just going to leave them to sit and dry hard. Now here's the sheet of decals I made. I did some tutorial things with Photoshop because I figured that's where it's at. I'll be able to make them really small, and I did make them small and they're all measured right and they look really good, but when I printed them I had to resize them again and they're a little bit blurry, they're not as defined as I'd like. I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. Maybe it's just the limit of my printer, I don't know. Okay, a bit of Tamiya black wash for the grill once I get the lid off. Do it once. I did this 2 or 3 times because it's so fluid. I let it dry, then put another coat on, let it dry, put another coat on to get the effect that I got in the end. At this point I decided it's time for reassembly. There's still some finishing touches to be done, but I thought we'll get it together now. It's like I did on the Volkswagen clown car build. Q-tip or cotton bud and some red paint and just dot it onto the taillights there, and it remains pretty round and looks pretty good. And then the Molotow 1mm, just do the door handles, and I tried to do the Plymouth emblems on the boot and bonnet. I did have a go at doing the chrome strips around the sides. but it didn't work. Thankfully I was able to wipe them off before they set because it looked awful. That's a skill set I need to improve. Now I'm just gluing the injector stacks in. I just used some white glue on that. I didn't want to drop it on the paint and wreck it. A little bit more of the Tamiya black wash on there, just to give it a bit of definition, make it look less like a toy, which it is of course. And then I got emboldened. I thought I'm going to try some of the grey panel liner in the actual panel lines. I thought normally I should stop at this stage before I ruin it, but it actually worked out okay and I was quite pleased with the result. Now you can see the Ram Chargers team look I was going for with the red and white stripes on the roof. And looking at here, I didn't make them long enough. I know I should have done it again, but time got the better of me. So after a little bit of judicial cleaning up and making sure it looks half human, we're done. So here we are back at the start with our Stockers Rock Matchbox 62 Plymouth Savoy. It's a really beautiful model. It's really good. I believe there's a recolor of it coming in red. So I have to keep an eye out for that. I'll buy all them as well. Anyway, there's only one way for this car and that was super stock. This is what we started with, and here is what we're left with now. Now I'm really pleased with how this came out, but I can't lie, the definition and the decals on the doors should have been much tighter. It says Mr. Muscle, that was the name I came up with for the drag car. But overall I'm pretty happy with it. It should be sitting a lot higher at the front. Go check out Brian at Diecast Outcast, the one he did. It looks how it should do. But that's okay. I've got a whole box of these and it won't be the last one I do. So I'll get another crack at it soon. Right, so don't forget the next DIBS build off, guys. Chevy Impalas. September 15th, the deadline. So if you're watching this, it must mean it's Friday the 13th. Woo! And you've only got till midnight tonight, ESPBT, that's Eastern Standard PB time, to get your entry in. Now I really wish I had a prize to give to everybody, which sounds corny and, you know, like I'm full of it, but I really do appreciate everyone's support. I really value my new subscribers, my old subscribers. People, if you don't subscribe, I'm just grateful for you stopping by to have a look at my channel. I will have a longer waffle about it on Sunday when I upload the draw, so you can see if you are the proud owner of a new Mini and one of my super awesome shirts. Thanks again to Gerard and Renee and VC Clothing. See you Sunday, guys. Hold your breath, cross your fingers and your toes.